sometimes people have what it takes, but they haven't recognized it yet. Just go forward. So what do you need to do? How do you stand out? So what you need to do is be that person that's different and is bigger than you think. Rise from the ashes and fly like the phoenixes that you are. Welcome, and hello, everybody. My name is Andrew David. This is Blake Newbar's partner program, the High Performance Call. Daily we come on, we talk about different ways to build up your foundation to become better, both mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and with your business. And throughout the course of the calls that I've done, I've talked a lot about what has helped me through the years in building businesses, being able to work online and work from home. And relationships is one of those key elements. About 2 months ago, we had Blake Newbar on, and he said that's one of the key skills that people need if they want to be successful in business nowadays, is the ability to network and build relationships. And so today, I'm super excited because we have a guest on. His name is Kevin Thompson. I'm going to give my quick background, then I'll let him talk a little bit about it, because this is technically my first time meeting you live, Kevin. So I'm super excited about that. But I met Kevin online, and I'm sure he doesn't realize this, but probably about a decade ago or even longer, because we were both in the same kind of industry years and years ago. I was in cleaning and restoration for over a decade. I was part of Joe Polish's Piranha Marketing, that platinum group. And so his name would come up. And that's where I started to learn about direct response marketing. I started to see how Joe started connecting with people and built relationships. And, for me, he was one of those ultimate connectors, just the way that he goes about building relationships and bringing people in and what he would do in that regard. Well, so that's Kevin's name would come up in different ways. And then I saw him on Facebook and I connected, and then just kind of been, maybe secretly stalking in the background, just following along forever for the last decade or so almost. And you posted some stuff recently about some of the stuff you were doing. And I said, that's perfect for the group that we've got. And so I reached out, and Kevin was more than accommodating, absolutely rock star to be able to be here. So I'll let him give a little bit more of his biography, but he built up a successful business, sold it, started online years ago, building relationships and doing other things. And for the last, 15, almost 20 years, you've been connecting people in a strategic manner, which has built partnerships, which have brought money into your pocket and a tremendous amount of value to those individuals and their businesses. And so I'm excited to have you on. I appreciate you being here, sir.
Well, man, my pleasure. My pleasure. Anytime I can share my passion for helping people create more valuable, meaningful, and profitable relationships in their lives and in their businesses, man, I am all for it, Andrew. I am all for it. So my pleasure to be here.
Well, good. So give me a little background how you went from, kind of the pathway that I did, like cleaning, sucking water out of carpet, cleaning dog urine up for people and doing all that kind of stuff, to, building $1 million relationships. Like, how did that pathway happen?
Okay, so I'll try to give the background as quick as I can. So so Joe Polish was my introduction to direct response marketing. I had started a cleaning and restoration business in 1996 after working for 7 years as a commercial fisherman in Alaska to save up money to start that business. And in the first year, I blew through over $300,000, and I still didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I see this article from Joe Polish in a trade publication for the industry, and it just totally spoke to me. And I reached out to him, and he was offering this free report on how to do better in your cleaning business, how to get more clients in a month than you currently get all year. And
I remember.
And I was like, boy, I could use some of that. And so I got his report. It was like, I don't know, 30 pages or something like that, and read through that. And then he was offering a marketing system. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to invest in this. So I invested in his marketing system, ultimately joined his coaching group. And over the next 3 years, with Joe's help, we completely transformed that business into a by referral only company. And in 2000, I added a website component to that and I'll tell you that website, it's remnants of it are still up there today. You could go check it out if you want. It's at getmoldsolutions.com, probably one of the ugliest websites on the internet. and it's mostly defunct now, but there's remnants of it still there. And but within a couple of years, that little website had taken me from just being a local business owner in my community to now being a nationwide expert. In fact, I even claimed the title of the nation's mold solutions expert. And that irritated people in the industry because they're like, who the heck do you think you are? And,
I'm the guy that understands marketing and positioning.
That's right. That's right. And within a couple of years, that website was adding an additional 13 to 14,000 a month to the business. And because of the website, because of technology, I ended up building a subscriber list via that website of about 28,000 people. And as a result of that, I had spoken about mold and what to do in a mold situation, water damage situation, how to take care of it, how to find a contractor, all that. I had spoken with more people thanks to technology than anybody else in the cleaning and restoration industry. Okay. And in 2003, Joe and I were talking, and he's like, hey, because he used to put on these annual events for the industry that he'd get like 350 people at. And he's like, why don't you come down here this year and show everybody what you've done with your website? And I'm like, all right. I was like, that sounds good. And he's like, before you come, be sure to document what you do and how you do it and put it into a course, because once people hear from you, a certain percentage of them, they're going to want your help, and just make sure you're ready to give them that. And I'm like, all right. And so we did that. I spoke at his event in October of 2003. I shared what I was doing with my website. At the end of that, I just said, hey, if this resonates with you, if you believe I can help you, well, I'd be happy to do that. Here's what that looks like. Here's what the investment is. And we made $35,000 in sales of that course that I just created.
That's not a bad day at the office, huh?
No. And you know what? That's a way better than typical day that I had at the office in the cleaning and restoration business as far as revenue goes.
and with no Tyvek suit and ventilator, right? No mask.
That's right. That's right. and that, looking back on that, I didn't have a clue what was going on through that process. Looking back, hindsight's 2020. And, that was Joe was my very first ever strategic partner. Right. When him and I did that, he just saw that I had something of value to offer his people. And by putting me in front of them at that event, I was going to further the relationship that he already had with them. And right. it didn't matter, there was no conversation about money or, hey, we're going to make a killing or anything like that. He just was like, this would be a great thing for you to do. And I can tell you that if he would have thought for 1 second that I would have damaged the relationship that he had with all those people in any way at all, he would have never even put me in front of them, regardless of how much money he could have made.
Right. It was all about, and it's always been for him. And that's one of the key things I think I learned from him too, is, if you've got an audience, how do I bring value? And if I can bring value, the rest of it will fall into place. But if that relationship adds value, you're gold. If it detracts in any way, then nothing else matters. Because right. The short-term financial gain there, that's one of the things I think with relationship building that a lot of times, especially new entrepreneurs and a lot of the members here watching, are kind of stepping into this space the first time. And so there's this desire like, oh, but if I create this partnership and we do this and we do maybe this joint venture marketing thing, I could make 1,000, 10,000, whatever now. But if it hurts you long run where you could make 20, 50, 100 long term with that audience, then it's not worth the short term.
That's right. That is absolutely right. And, once I saw what happened at Joe's event and the people that I started serving, I had such an amazing experience. I absolutely love, I mean, kind of like what you do, Andrew. You help people just in the same way that I was helping people, maybe a different topic or what have you. But I just enjoyed that so much. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do this full time. And so from October 2003, by April 19th of 2004, that was the date that I sold the cleaning and restoration business, and we moved into the training company full time.
That was pretty quick.
I went on to sell $16.1 million worth of that course and the ongoing training that we had created through that over the next 13 years. And I did it solely through strategic partnerships. Okay. And so over that 13-year period, I did almost 600 strategic partnerships with different companies and different entrepreneurs. And if not for them, my business wouldn't have grown in the way that it did. And so I was always really grateful to my partners. I was always focused on giving them a great experience from start to finish, regardless of how much revenue got produced. And I always wanted to further their relationship with their people. I wanted their people going back to them going, wow, thanks so much for introducing me to Kevin. That was really valuable, regardless of whether they invested in what we were offering or not.
Well, so let me ask you, because I was telling people that you were coming on, and I was kind of asking for questions they might have, and people were kind of talking about, and one of the questions that we have is about repeat buyers and things. You've kind of gone about it, and so we can answer that one from Hartley here in a second, but you've gone about it a way that I kind of describe. Instead of going after all of the little stuff, your focus has been building like whale hunting, right? I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but like you're going after the whales instead of just like the one-off all over the place that you can get those. You go after the big boys that you can create the relationship with because they've got, the schools of fish following them, as it were.
Yeah. And then the other piece too, and for me personally, I've never used the term whale. Granted, I have had to get past a whole lot of BS in my own head. And because a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the people that are clients, they have businesses way bigger than any business I've ever ran. I mean, at our peak in that training company, we were doing like 1.6 million a year. I have clients and people, entrepreneurs and CEOs that I work with that do, anywhere from $1 million on up to 40, 50, 60 million a year. And so I had to get through some of that stuff with my own self, as far as like, me putting them on this pedestal of like, they're way up here and here's me down here because I don't have the experience that they have. And how do you
do that? So that's a key element, especially, if you're starting out online, or, maybe you've done a certain amount in any business. And now I'm trying to create a relationship with someone that's done, like you said, 1 million or 40 or whatever, but more than I have. So how do I step in and still have enough belief there where, hey, I can still bring value to this relationship?
Okay. So I'm going to let you know right now that, first of all, no matter how successful somebody is, no matter how big of a business that they run, no matter how great things look for them from the outside looking in, there's a couple things here. First of all, and I'll address, I'll circle back around to this. There's not a person on the face of this earth that gets enough appreciation. And when we just show genuine appreciation for people, I'm going to tell you that will open so many doors. It'll open so many conversations for you. And then the other piece of this is that no matter how big somebody's business is and how successful they are, at any given time, they have very real problems and challenges in their business and in their life that they're trying to figure out. And they also have opportunities that they want to take advantage of that they don't quite have the clarity around how to best do that. And what I found is just through doing what I do, I always focused on the relationship. And so I always led with what I call active appreciation, active, genuine appreciation. And I'll give you an example of this, and I'll give you guys a challenge too, because we all have cell phones. We have contacts in our cell phones. Those people could be friends, they could be family, they could be business associates, whatever. You want to experience this for yourself and see how powerful this is. All you need to do is you just choose 10 people out of your contacts in your cell phone, and you send them a message, and you let them know one thing that you genuinely appreciate about them. And you don't do anything else. You don't ask for anything in return. You don't even ask for a response in return. All you're going to do is send out some love, and you watch what happens. You and them are going to have such an amazing experience with that. You can thank yourself later, because that's been at the core of everything I've done all these years, is just letting people know how much I appreciate them. And it's just one thing. You know, it could be an article that they got published. It could be a presentation that I saw that they did. It could be a video I saw. It could be whatever. And just let them, you know, just send messages to people, letting them know, man, I really appreciate that, because here's what that meant to me. And that has opened so many doors and so many conversations that have just led to amazing things as a result of that.
Well, yeah. So guys, there's your challenge that I will be sure, Kevin, to remind them. I've done a big part of this group I've got a Skype group that they're in, where we kind of have a rolling challenge. So every kind of 30 days, I give them something. You know, we did an affirmation challenge at first. And then in July, I gave them a kind of live your life challenge, like go out and experience something that you haven't before, do something to kind of show your self appreciation that you're living a little. And, you know, find ways, whether it's a big or small thing on the bucket list, to check off. And so my fiance and I dragged her out, and we went skydiving. But then one of the other things at the end of the month was I got Steve Sims to join us on one of these calls, right? And he's someone else that I had found through Joe that I've been following forever. And I said, I got to get him on. And so this will be part of the next challenge. Then we'll make sure everybody goes out and spreads some love and appreciation. So I like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. Very cool. So talk to me a little bit about, you know, one of the key elements that you had sent over was showing up. And so you've talked a little bit about that, and showing up with gratitude and giving instead of just taking. Is there anything else in there when it comes to showing up, especially like in this, you know, COVID digital, like how do you show up maybe with either starting a relationship you don't have yet?
Yep.
You know, do you have a way to kind of get that ball rolling?
Absolutely. So, you know, it all starts, like I said, with the active appreciation. And I don't have any problem. I mean, I am huge on Facebook, not so much on LinkedIn. I mean, I could definitely stand to use, you know, I mean, I'm not very active on LinkedIn, but I'm very big on Facebook, and I don't have any problem reaching out to people at all and shooting message. Even if, like, I saw somebody comment about, what do you do if you don't even know somebody? And also, how did I overcome some of my own limiting beliefs? Right. My own limiting beliefs got overcome by simply having conversations with people and finding out that no matter how successful they are, they're just people just like us. Right. And when we show up ready to contribute, help, and serve others first, well, people know that. They know that about us. They can they can just sense it. And see, when I showed up for Joe, when him and I did that very first strategic partnership, I was like, man, my biggest concern is, like, I wanted to do right by Joe.
Yeah. How do I take care of his audience there?
Absolutely. And that's why we got the results that we got. And the other parts of showing up are like, you know, we've got to be able to leave our pride and ego at the door too, because, you know, we all have problems. We all have challenges. We all have limitations. I mean, I'm good at certain things. I'm really good at and world-class at even, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that I am just, don't talk to me about it or expect help from me, because I'm not your guy. And that's okay. And when we can just have these real conversations, because I'm going to let you know right now that that's what everybody wants. They want more meaningful, real relationships, not this surface level BS kind of stuff, but real relationships where, and I mean, we can maybe dig into that a little bit if you want, Andrew, as far as how I go about doing that, but realize that, we all have a skill set, a service, or a product that is useful to others. Even if, like, some people might think, well, I don't know what that is. You know what? I got news for you. Spend a little bit of time, like, really looking into that, because we all have a skill set.
A little bit of extra self-awareness and recognizing your own potential and value. And then just, like you said, I think part of that will come out, you got to overcome some of the limiting belief or some of the doubt and reach out and try and have some of those conversations, because you'll never be able to own it without that. Yes. And it's not trying to place yourself as the expert. I love the way that you do it, and the way that you're talking about, real questions and everything else is, I put myself in that position by asking you what you need. Everything else, nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if I'm good at anything if you don't need my help. And if you do need my help, then I can't do it, then, like you said, it may not be me. I'll find somebody. That's right. The key element of being a connector, is understanding, like, I don't have to be the wizard with everything, because there's a whole group of other people I'm connected with.
That's right. And here's the thing is, when we're talking with somebody else, and even if we are not able to help them, because I've had that happen too, where I've had conversations with people that they were looking to accomplish this or solve this problem or whatever. And I'm like, you know what, man, I nothing's coming to mind right now. And when I just let them know that, you know what, let me noodle on this for a while. Let me think about this for a little bit, because you deserve that. And if I come up with anything, I will let you know. And if I can make a connection for you, I will absolutely do that. And right. Just that comment alone, Andrew, it creates so much relationship capital with people, just because we took the time to listen to them and hear them out. And even if we can't help them, they just appreciate us for showing up that way.
Right. And being able to say, like, no, I'm not here to try and sell you something. I don't have it. I'm not your solution. Yeah. I'll see if I can figure it out. Like, it's okay. It kind of puts them in a safe spot, knowing that every time they talk to me, I'm not going to try and shove something down their throat and give me your credit card right now, kind of thing.
That's right.
It puts you in that great position there. So, yeah. All right. So one of the questions about outsourcing, I know you run a real tight ship, because you're not out doing, a ton of content and filming a bunch of stuff like a lot of other people. I saw. So, and guys, I'll share this article with you in our Skype group. That Kevin was featured in this Forbes article a few years back. It wasn't written about him. It was written about kind of the way he runs his business, right? The way that you do it. It's kind of like you, but do you still have a couple of VAs that you have do little things for you to outsource?
I have people who help me with a lot of things. And in fact, what's interesting is I have not been a big content producer. But what's interesting is in the last month, some conversations I've had with people close to me have led to me. I'm now producing a podcast. We're getting ready to launch it within the next 2-3 weeks here. And I've already got 18 episodes recorded in like less than a month. And if you would have talked to me a month ago, doing a podcast wasn't even on my radar.
Well, I saw that on Facebook. But so this is the value of relationships, guys. So, like I said, I've been following you on Facebook for a bit, and I know a number of those guys that are on that you're friends with, just from others that I follow. And so Kevin posted this, just the questions that he asks are the same questions that we tell you guys to do, right? In a way that's going to create some engagement. So you ask this question, and I want to say one of them was about, one person that has been in your life that's absolutely transformed your business, and you wouldn't be here today if you hadn't connected with them. And there was another one that was kind of like that. And the responses and the caliber of people that were responding, I think, speaks a lot.
It blew me away. It blew me away, Andrew. Yeah, I asked that one question.
But then that turned into, there's all your episodes. So you haven't even started yet. And everybody's like, yeah, I want to talk about that.
Yes.
I love that.
And people want to hear those conversations because they want to be a fly on the wall as these successful entrepreneurs and CEOs talk about their most valuable connection, Right. And so here's a perfect example of this. I don't know the first thing about podcasting. But this guy, Rob McClellan, who I know, as soon as he saw me post about, okay, man, this thing's taken off, I want to talk to more people. I got all these recordings produced or made already, and I'm ready to do a podcast. And I just put that on Facebook. Well, Rob, who I knew, reached out to me and just said, hey, here's a link. If we can help, let us know. And I checked out what he was doing, and I'm like, dang, this is exactly what I need. And so I'm now working with his team to get the podcast set up. And I need an intro and an outro recorded and all that. And I'm like, okay, who am I going to find to do this? I don't know anybody. And I was like looking around. Well, I just put a post on Facebook last night, really simple. And all these people start giving me suggestions of, hey, talk to so-and-so, talk to so-and-so. And then one of my close friends, Vinny, was like, he just chimed in. He's like, Tony Grubmeyer. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, Tony is a client. And Tony used to be in the broadcasting space. Well, and he runs a podcast, and I've been a guest on his podcast. And I've always thought Tony has this amazing voice. And I'm like, holy cow, I didn't even think of Tony. Well, so now Tony is like helping me do this. And so it's like, all we got to do is for anything that we need. And here's the deal with this. Now the podcasting company that, I'm paying them their fee to do what they do, but like with Tony and stuff, he's not charging me to do what he's going to do for me, because we have a long-standing relationship. And like, he is like the perfect guy to do this, because we know each other so well. We've been friends for so long. He has got an amazing voice, but he's just going to be able to do it better than anybody else that I hire to do it for me and stuff. So
let me ask, because you've built up you've now been doing this for a while, so you've cultivated relationships over the years. How do you go from introduction and then, or really, maybe a better question, the difference between networking and schmoozing is one of the things that I know you talk. So you got networking and schmoozing, and a lot of us have been to BNI or Chamber of Commerce events or other things, or almost trying to do the same thing online, to actually connecting with someone and being a connector. Like, what's the difference there, and how do we do that?
Yeah. We've all, a lot of us. I won't speak for all of you. You guys, you can say, we've probably all been in a networking situation that just totally sucked, where people show up with their game faces on, it's kind of like everybody's trying to impress everybody, talking about themselves, and like nobody's listening to anybody because everybody's trying to talk. And
everybody's got the goal of handing out their stack of cards.
Yeah. It's almost like, it's like how many cards can I hand out? Which then when everybody leaves with those cards, they usually end up in the garbage can. And so what I do, and what I'll suggest is, what would happen? What might happen if we shifted our focus from networking to making meaningful connections? Because like I mentioned before, isn't that what we all really want more of? More meaningful connections and relationships where we feel seen, heard, and understood. And I got news for you. That's what everybody else wants too. That's what everybody else wants. And so, being a world-class connector, even if you hate the typical networking schmoozing, it all starts with what we talked about earlier, genuine appreciation. And then, when you're in conversations with people, you're not talking about you. When I find myself talking with people, I am asking them questions. In fact, the guy Rob that I mentioned earlier that's helping me with my podcast, he and his team, I met him at an event a while ago, and we met on the second day of that event on a break. It was a 20-minute break. I went up and I started talking to him. I asked him a question and he started answering. And then based on what he was sharing with me, I started asking more clarifying questions on that. And before you know it, the 20 minutes is up and they're telling us, hey, let's get back in the seats and then get started again. And Rob then apologizes to me. He's like, Kevin, I'm so sorry. I took up the whole 20 minutes and I don't know anything about you at all. And I'm like, no worries. I say, we can exchange contact information and we can follow up again. And we did. But the thing is, we want to ask meaningful questions, not trivial, surface level BS kind of questions. So I'll give you a couple examples, of the kind of questions that I would ask. What motivates you to do what you do, or what motivates you to serve the people that you serve? And see, the thing is, when you ask questions like this, you get people talking about themselves. Give me a couple more examples. What are you working on?
Guys, real quick, Kevin, I'm going to give you guys a hint. He's giving you gold right now. I always talk about on these calls, you don't have to try and consume and understand every single thing. You pick up what Joe always talks about, one nugget, one elegant idea, right? Look for your $10,000 idea that he always talks about. This is what he's giving you right now. So I would write down these questions. Okay. So, all right, go ahead, Kevin.
So another question is, what are you working on right now that totally excites you? What are some of the biggest wins you've had over the last few months? What could you most use help and support with right now? See, those are questions that will get people just talking about themselves. And that's your goal. Your goal is not to talk about you. Your goal is to get other people talking about themselves. And then, as they're answering questions for you, here's a novel thing. You're going to listen and be genuinely interested in hearing what they have to share with you, because you're not waiting for your turn to talk. You are totally focused on them. And what happens is, in that process, you give the gift. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is a gift that's in really short supply. You give people the gift of feeling seen, heard, and understood. And that alone makes such a massive impact, because we've all heard that, it's not what we say, it's how we make people feel when they're around us. Right. And you are going to give people such an amazing feeling that they are never going to forget you. And through this whole process, you get to make valuable discoveries about people.
Right. You said the seen, heard, and understood a minute ago, and I wrote that down because it is, in a way, it's the anti-sales pitch, right? Like I'm here to build a relationship, and the only way to build that relationship is to hear you, to see you, to understand you, right? And once I do that, then opportunities arise. And it's something I talk about on these calls. Like I don't care what business you're in. And if you look at Kevin's list of people that he's done joint ventures with, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about right here. I don't care what business you're in. There's a way that we can connect and add value to your list, or you add value to mine. I don't care what business you're in, because your audience is going to have some kind of problem, some kind of issue, some kind of pain point, something, and there's some kind of solution there. But the only way to figure that out is by listening, by seeing them, hearing them, and understanding them. And if you do that, then there's a way to connect. Because if I hear your problem, then I go, all right, well, now I can find a solution. If I walk in saying, here's what I've got by my shed, then there's going to be an issue there, and there's going to be a disconnect, right? That wall goes up. But if all I'm doing is asking you questions and letting you explain it to me, man, I love that. The seen, heard, and understood. Those were great. So can you run through real quick, repeat your questions, and then if someone wants to write those down.
Okay. You know what? You want me to?
Actually, I think I've got them. I'll copy and paste them in here.
Okay.
All right.
And
there we go.
Perfect.
There you go, guys. What motivates you to do what you do or serve the people you serve? What are you working on right now that excites you the most? What are the biggest wins you've had over the last few months, and what could you most use help and support with right now?
And I'll tell you, put yourself in that position of somebody asking any one of those questions of you, where when they asked those questions of you, you knew that they were genuinely interested in hearing what you had to say about that.
Right.
And they listened to you, and they asked clarifying questions of you. I mean, how would that make you feel? And when you give that gift to other people, I'll tell you what, you give them such an amazing feeling that now they just want to help you. They just want to learn more about you. They're going to be like Rob was, that like, man, I talked the whole dang time. Man, Kev, I want to learn more about you. And like,
well, so then I'm in that position and I'm asking these questions. What kind of stuff am I discovering that's going to put me in that position to be able to help? Like, there's some key discoveries that I'm going to get from that.
Yeah, there is some key discoveries. So you're going to find out how you might be able to be of service to that person. You're going to know, whether it will make sense for you to connect with that person and have a more engaging conversation around what, you might be able to do together. You're going to find out that there may be that opportunity for the two of you to collaborate or partner together. And also, like we already talked about, you will have made a meaningful connection with someone and gave them a memorable experience that now, because of the way you showed up, because of the way that you made them feel, you now have somebody who you can easily have an ongoing long-term relationship. And here's the thing, is that's what it's all about. It's about relationships. I mean, relationships and relationship capital are the most valuable asset we possess. Because when we have relationships with people and when we focus on the relationship first, all the other stuff, you want to get people to promote what you're doing. I mean, it's really easy when you have relationships with people. That's all I did in my core business, the training business that I ran for 13 years, was create relationships. And then because I gave those people this kind of an experience, that's what caused them to tell other people about me. That's, like we talked about before, as far as, giving our partners a great experience from start to finish, that's what makes people tell other people about us. It's not the money that we would pay them, hey, I'll pay you for referring business to me. It's the way we make them feel. Now, if we want to compensate them, that's great. And I've done that as well, but right. The money is not the motivator. The money is not right. The motivator. It's how we show up and how we make people feel when they're around us. And that's what motivates them to tell other people about us.
How do you start? So Denise is asking about networking now. Like, how would you start either a colder relationship? Because obviously, getting an introduction is the best way if we're doing virtual, right?
Yep.
You introduce me to somebody is going to be the best way for me to meet that person. But have you tried virtually going out and kind of introducing yourself and saying, hey, this is what I do, but doing it online and kind of.
I do it online all the time, and I reach out to people cold all the time. But I don't reach out talking about this is what I do or anything. I don't. It's all about them. And so when I reach out to people cold online, it's because they posted something that really resonated with me, or they shared something, or what have you. And I start every reach out with appreciation and letting them know, hey, man, I really appreciate it. Like, I'll comment on their post or whatever, and then shoot them a message or what have you. I do that all the time. But no, I don't ever talk about me and what I do. If they want to find out about me and what I do, that's easy. They can just go to my page and see that.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, the way we reach out and the way we start conversations with people is through active appreciation, genuine appreciation.
Yeah. Not just love your post, but this made me think about XYZ. Appreciate you posting your content, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Denise, I hope that answers that question. So let me ask you, what's the difference between like that network, a relationship, and then an actual partnership? How do you go from step 1 to 2 to 3?
Okay. So when we're having conversations like this with people and making them, feel the way that we do when we communicate this way with people, it gets people asked. They want, because of how we make them feel. You're going to be in these conversations, and they're going to get to like the place where Ron and I got in that 20-minute conversation is we ran out of time at that event, but he, because of the interaction we had, he wanted to get to know me more. This wasn't like he was like, I should probably follow up with Kevin because, no, he wanted to because of the whole experience that he had. And so through that's how we get people wanting to learn more about us. And now, depending on the situation, if you're in an event where you've got a longer time span, or you got more time available, you're going to end up following up right there. And they're going to start asking about you. And you get to then open the floor up and start talking about what you do and what motivates you. And I will caution you, don't talk about what you do so much. Focus on what motivates you to do what you do. What excites you the most about what you do? What excites you the most about the people you serve? That's the kind of stuff that you want to talk about as well. Not so much the how-to or the specifics of it or the nuts and bolts or the process. Right. Nobody cares about that. Right. And so, when you start doing it that way, now you get people like, oh, well, you know what, man, I know so-and-so, you need to have a conversation with them. Or you know what, man, I would love, I had a conversation like this with a gentleman by the name of Bill Harris. Before he passed away, he was the founder of a company called Centerpoint Research Institute, which was a very large company. And at the time I found myself in a conversation with him, quite honestly, he had been one of those guys that had been like, I had invested in his marketing materials. He was in that movie, The Secret, years ago and stuff. He was a big, fat, hairy deal in my mind. And here I am talking with him on the phone. And I'm like, wow, I'm talking with Bill Harris. And who knows, maybe he was like, holy cow, I'm talking with Kevin Thompson. I don't know. But during the course of that conversation, we just got to talking. And I found out what really motivated him and what he was working on and all that. And then he then it was like, well, Kev, tell me about your thing and what you do and what excites you to do that. And I started telling him about that. And he was like, he's like, Kev, what I appreciate most about you is that you're just teaching what you've done. And he's like, the cool thing about this is that all the stuff that you're teaching, a lot of it is the exact same stuff that I used to build Centerpoint Research Institute. Okay. And he's like, I think my folks would be, they would love to hear from you. And I would, why don't we do an event and I'll send out an email and we'll put you in front of them and stuff. And so we did that. And he sent out a single email to his list. We did a teleseminar. I don't know what year this was. This was probably 8-9 years ago. We did a teleseminar for his people. At the end of that event, we had made $187,000 in sales in less than 24 hours. And that was the power of a really good relationship. And I will tell you, before that conversation with Bill, there were many people who told me you would never be able to get the attention of a guy like Bill because you guys just aren't on the same business playing field. He runs a business that's really big and yours is small. And we had that conversation. Bill and I did. In fact, he was telling me, he's like, Kevin, he's like, if you could, if you're so inclined, what I'd like to do is I'd like to send you a copy of my Holistic product. And if you like it, then he's like, you know what? He's like, I'd love to have you help spread the word about that too and stuff. And he's like, man, he's like, maybe we wouldn't even have to exchange monies at all. We could just help each other out. And I was like, I know Bill's business is way bigger than mine. Right. And I was like, Bill, I was like, how big? How many people are on your email list? And he said, just under 1 million. And I'm like, oh, all right. And he's like, Kevin, how many on your email list right now? I said, about 28,000. And I was like, Bill, I was like, if we do this, I said, I think I'm just going to have to send you a check. He's like, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, whatever. But it wasn't the money that was motivating him. Right. It was, he's like, Kevin, my people are going to love you. And it translated to, you're going to further my relationship with these people. They're going to like me more because I introduced them to you.
Right. Now, let me ask you, because you've done this, you mentioned there's been, nearly 600 different people that you've been able to do something with that's generated revenue. You're up, a good healthy 8 figures over the years through building these relationships. How many people do you think you've connected with that have just said, no, I'm not interested in doing it? You know what I mean?
Well, I've connected with lots of people that it was not a right fit for me and them to do anything together. Lots. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people. But here's the thing. I still have relationships with lots of those people.
Right.
Because they have skill sets. And through this whole process of all these years of doing this, because I was always focused on how can I help them first, I've made tons of connections over the years. I have made tons of connections. And so I'll give you an example. This was also probably 8-9 years ago. I was having a conversation with this guy, Brian Kurtz. And at the time, Brian Kurtz was working with a company, Marty Edelson's company, Boardroom Reports. And they are a massive direct mail company. And he was telling me that their big challenge at the moment is they were trying to figure out the Google AdWords platform. And he's like, Kevin, he's like, man, we're pulling our hair out on this thing. And he's like, we know direct mail, but we don't know this platform. And I was like, do you know Perry Marshall? And he's like, well, I know of him. I said, you need to talk with Perry and his team because that's what they do. I was like, they can totally help you with that. And he's like, well, are you friends with him? I'm like, yeah. I said, I'll get you guys connected. And so I sent an email to connect those two guys. Perry's team did help Boardroom Reports with their Google stuff. And Perry and Brian became such good friends. About a year later, they did this big event together. I believe it was called like the Titans of Direct Response or something like that. And there was hundreds of entrepreneurs that went to that event. And the day that event started, I had friends of mine who were entrepreneurs that were in the audience at that event. And I'm getting Facebook messages and text messages from people in the audience saying, hey, Brian and Perry, they're talking about you from stage right now, saying that you're the one who connected them. And I remember my buddy Paul Bingham sent me a text. And he's like, Kevin, they're talking about you from stage in a really good light. And then his comment was, one never knows where a well-planted seed will sprout.
Right.
And so for years of just me trying to help other people and making connections for them, helping them by build their business. I also got to build my own business. And I also, in the process, completely set myself up for what I'm doing now, because now I have a company called Tribe for Leaders with my partner, Jules, where this is our full-time gig. This is what I do, is I make connections. I facilitate million-dollar business relationships all the dang time. That's what I do.
So a quick question that's got an easy answer. Does direct mail and direct marketing still exist?
Heck yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, and we both
I know guys using it very effectively right now.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is there's fewer people that are trying it because of the internet. And so a lot of people are kind of stepping back into it and getting even better results than they were just a few years ago because there's not as much competition. So, okay. We've talked about, your focus over the years has been, how can I help them, right? Like, how can I bring value to them, and finding that and building that relationship. A lot of people, as they make this transition into being an entrepreneur, or just a lot of people in general, how can I put this? So many people are so used to walking into a situation with the kind of what's in it for me. How can I get something out of it? How can I make the fast dollar? I need to get paid now.
Yep.
What you're talking about is building something where, like you said, you created this relationship between, Perry and these guys. And then a year or two later, they host an event, then they talk about you. Then that leads to other calls and referrals, I'm sure, that came through like, hey, I heard about you through this. Can you help me? So you're getting paid sometimes months, a year, multiple years down the road from that initial conversation. What would you recommend to someone that's at the beginning of this transition, like beginning of that journey? Like I'm going in, I've got to build relationships so that later on I can enjoy, like you said, planting the seeds now so I can enjoy the fruit later. What would you say to someone that's at the beginning of that?
Well, and here's the thing, you know, if you have your thing figured out that you are already effectively selling it now. And by the way, that doesn't mean that you have to have a big funnel or anything like that, because really all it takes to effectively sell it is have a conversation who has a problem that you can solve and you can sell it. So if you're able to effectively sell your thing now, don't feel for a second that like you can't like get people helping you by introducing you to people or putting you in front of their audiences or what have you. You know what I mean? Like I really don't have anything to here to sell to anybody, but Andrew, you're the one that you reached out to me and said, hey, would you come on and do this call with our folks and stuff? I mean, right. That happens all the dang time. And so, don't think that it takes, I mean, like, do some things take longer? Absolutely. Sometimes, but like that project with Bill and I, when I got introduced to him, because I was already effectively selling my thing. It was like just a couple of weeks till we did the project. And that 187,000 in revenue was realized. That was like, from start to finish, from initial conversation to revenue realized was no more than 3 weeks.
Right.
And so, this doesn't have to take long, but you do have to have your thing that you're effectively selling. And like I said, it doesn't require a big funnel or anything like that. It just requires you having conversations with people that you can help and that they have a problem that you can solve. And beyond that, yes, the long term, I've been doing this for years now, and I have created hundreds and hundreds of relationships with people who all have skill sets, who all have things that they are world class at, that I can be of service to them and they can be of service to me. And those relationships will continue to serve me and them till my last day on this earth.
That's awesome. Okay. So there's so much, guys, there's so much value here. There's so much to unpack. Go back and watch this over and over and over again. I want to wrap with a couple of just kind of questions that I pulled some of them from Tim Ferriss from his Tribe of Mentors book. But okay, there's a lot of great books, that are like real standard in the entrepreneur space. What's maybe a book that you would like that you've recommended above any other, or if you were to say, hey, this is one you've got to read that that's kind of on your list? Is there a book or two that's there?
There is a book called The Go-Giver. And that book was given to me several years ago. I am just having a brain fart because as soon as you mentioned that, Andrew, what's that?
Ivan Misner?
It's not Ivan Misner. Man, I can see the guy in my mind too, because I actually got to meet him and have a conversation with him virtually.
Bob Berg.
I'm just having a brain fart.
Bob Berg.
That's right. Bob Berg.
Yeah, I've met him.
And that's a short little book. It's a story is what it is, but it is power-packed with lessons and experiences on how you treat other people.
I think that's absolutely, having met Bob, having read that book, I think that's absolutely the perfect one for you and the message that you've got, Kevin. I don't know if there's one that's better. So that's fantastic. Okay. One of the other questions is, over the last kind of 6 months, a year, whatever, what's something that you've, something under, $100, $200 that you've spent money on that's just been like, this was perfect, right? Like something that you use all the time or has changed you or whatever. Some guilty little.
Well, this is top of mind now that I'm doing this podcast. I found that the company I'm trying to hold on. I'm going to get their name. And I don't know if anybody's even looking at doing a podcast or not, but I know people's names. I don't remember company names necessarily, but
I love that.
But for $250 a month, these guys do the whole dang thing from start to finish. That Streamlined Podcast is the name of the company. And these guys do the whole dang thing. That's my friend that I was telling you about, Rob. That's his company with his partners, that they handle all the logistical stuff, so that all I got to do is record interviews and do what I love doing, and they handle everything else. And not only that, they're also getting me on a bunch of podcasts as I get ready to launch this thing, because they want to, like, Kevin, we're going to get you on podcasts too, so that you can let everybody know about your new podcast and stuff. So $250 a month for that, which in my mind is a bargain.
Yeah. If you're, for them to do everything and then get you out there, that's fantastic.
Yeah. I see somebody typed in, who was it again? It's called Streamlined Podcasts.
Yeah. Streamlined Podcasts. So, all right. What about, so I guess, as far as your questions go, what is it that you're passionate about that you're working on right now? I guess that podcast would be your big project at the moment, right?
My big project at the moment is, and for the last, a couple of years, is we have a community called Tribe for Leaders. It's for entrepreneurs running. I don't know the actual revenues necessarily of all of our members, but I do know, on the low end, they're all doing $1 million. And on the high end, I know one guy's at 40 million. And I know we've got people higher than that. I just don't know exactly what their revenues are. But what I've discovered is, here's my thing. I love being the connector for amazing entrepreneurs who are making a massive impact in this world. And for me, I want to continue up-leveling the caliber of entrepreneur that we attract, because when I do my thing, if I do it with somebody who's doing $1 million a year versus if I do it with somebody who's doing 40, 50, or 60 million a year, the bigger the business, the bigger the opportunities. And so, and what really, like I said, what motivates me is I just know that I'm this behind the scenes guy that's making this massive impact in this world because of who I get to serve.
Right.
And so I just want to keep doing more of that. And this, Dan Sullivan talks about, his question, his big questions he asks is, what would you do till your last day on this earth? What would you love doing? And I was like, this is it. This is what I would love doing, and been doing it for years. And now I've got a business that like compensates me for that. So like, what could be better,
Right.
So.
No, that's amazing. That is fantastic. So Kevin, we're right at an hour already. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on. It's great to finally meet you. Are you going to be at Steve's Speakeasy in Austin?
I am. I was at his last one. In fact, that's where I met Rob. That was Steve's last Speakeasy event. I may be there. Okay. But if not the November one, I'll definitely be at another, because Steve and I are good friends too. So.
Yeah. Well, and that won't be my only one, but that's the first one that I get to go to. So I'm excited for that. But I thank you again for coming on, for the message, just the value that you've dropped. I hope these guys take it and take some of it and run with it and go out and do amazing things. I'm sure they will. But as soon as the podcast is launched, then I guarantee you're going to have a few listeners jumping on. That's for sure. I'll make sure I get them all the information, but really appreciate you coming on. Everybody hop on, say thank you. Round of applause for the man, Kevin. I thank you for coming on, my man.
Well, it was my pleasure, Andrew. Thank you for just giving me the opportunity to share from my heart. And because I love doing this, and I love helping other entrepreneurial, like-minded people. So it was absolutely my pleasure.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, as always, appreciate you guys being on. We love you. This is why we do what we do, teaching and training and connecting. So the only reason we're able to do this is because you guys show up every day. So thank you guys. Go out, be amazing. And as always, find a way to rise up from the ashes, fly like the phoenixes that you are. Go out and be exceptional. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you,
Take
Andrew.
care,
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye, Andrew.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Sometimes people have what it takes, but they haven't recognized it yet. Just go forward. So what do you need to do? How do you stand out? So what you need to do is be that person that's different and is bigger than you think. Rise from the ashes and fly like the phoenixes that you are.